And so, here we are, arriving at the very first sequel to a previous Rankin-Bass special. Weirdly enough, it isn't a Rudolph special. We're going back to Frosty the Snowman for this one. Now, I mentioned at the start of this marathon that there were a lot of pseudo-sequels to Rankin-Bass specials, released well after the company went under, but the company itself wasn't immune to sequelitis themselves, and this is our first, Frosty's Winter Wonderland. Well, it's been an indeterminate amount of time since Frosty left for the North Pole, and everyone's missing him. When Frosty sees in a newspaper that the city is once again a winter wonderland, he decides to go back and have himself some fun with the kids again. And in the special short length, we once again get a few different plot threads, including a jealous Jack Frost trying to get attention from those who spurned him, and Frosty trying to build himself a wife for when he gets lonely. From there, the special basically follows the city children and his new wife, Crystal, as they attempt to have some fun while constantly dealing with the machinations of Jack Frost and prepare for Frosty's wedding. Well, I'll say here and now, this is a lot better than the original special. The plot is a lot more well-structured, it doesn't meander nearly as much as the original, and there's some actual character here. Frosty actually makes a bit more of an impression here than he did in his debut, even if only just. And Jack Frost is a delightful antagonist who isn't portrayed as that bad of a guy, just jealous and annoyed that everyone seems more interested in Frosty than him. I rather like the fact that the conflict between Frosty and Jack is resolved simply, and through friendship. It's rather sweet. Unfortunately, apart from Frosty and Jack, there's not a whole lot beyond that. Frosty's wife, Crystal, and the few other characters with speaking roles, including the pastor and our narrator, here played by Andy Griffith, fill the roles they need to play, but that's about it. Hell, Karen doesn't even come back this time, so we don't have a single named child character this time around. In fact, all of the children are basically treated as one giant interchangeable mass, and they're always there in a group, with maybe 2 or 3 child voice actors between all of them. It's a decent plot, and decently whimsical, cute, and quick, and I don't find it nearly as boring. It's weird that there's probably less in this special in terms of stakes, and yet it manages to hold my attention a lot better. One thing that I did notice, though, was that even though Frosty has a lot more lines and is more of a character in his own story this time around, he sounds rather tired. He's played by the same person, Jackie Vernon, but he sounds older somehow. The voice acting all around is kind of mixed. Jack Frost is the standout voice, of course, and Frosty has such a unique delivery that you do remember it. Most of the other characters are okay, but don't leave much of an impression. They just sort of sound so normal that they're just there. Crystal, the pastor, even Andy Griffith is so incredibly boring and by the numbers that as a narrator, he's kind of underwhelming. Jimmy Durante might have been miscast when he narrated the original, but at least his delivery made the performance more interesting. I also find myself questioning how the magic works this time around. In the original special, it was implied that the Silk Hat was a catalyst, but there are 2 other snow people brought to life during this special, neither of which have a magic hat. It seems to be more about the whole first snowfall that we talked about the last time. What's more, Frosty loses his hat at one point, but Crystal brings him back to life by professing her love and giving him a flower made out of snow. So really there are no rules regarding how the whole bringing snowmen to life thing works. Unfortunately, the animation feels like it's gotten a noticeable downgrade this time. The original wasn't going to win any awards for animation quality, that's for certain, but it felt cleaner, a little bit more fluid than what we have here, where the animation feels like it's missing a lot more frames. The lip syncing feels incredibly off, like they were only barely trying this time. The designs for most of the human characters, and even Jack Frost, are also a strange combination of the sort of characters we saw in the original Frosty and The Night Before Christmas. And I have to say, I vastly prefer the simpler designs featured in the original Frosty to these ones. While most of the kids are unchanged, they do bear the hallmarks of that Night Before Christmas design, including the bulging chins and pushed out cheeks, which is honestly kind of off-putting to me. Musically, it's about as sparse as the first one. It pulls the same trick that the first one did, using the song Frosty the Snowman, repeating it throughout the half hour, but they once again build off of it by adding new verses to address both Frosty and his new wife. There's also a little bit of Winter Wonderland in there, though it's mostly only a single verse of that song, and that's all you get as far as musical numbers go. Again, I appreciate what they did with Frosty the song, at least, but musically, it's a little underwhelming. So yeah, I actually did enjoy this special a lot more than the first. It's certainly not amazing, but it's got a cute plot, some decent characterization, and if you can look past the choppy animation and some of the more unappealing designs, you might enjoy this one with a good cup of cocoa by yourself. And the best part, even though it's a direct sequel to the first one is so simple and such a nothing story and is basically summarized right at the start of this one, that you can safely skip it and go right into its sequel. You know, if you care that much about the Rankin-Bass extended canon universe. I'll see you next time, everyone.